Let's talk about speed. Not about going fast, but about correctly reporting speed, correctly measuring speed. It doesn't happen on its own. And basically, there are three factors that the controller uses to translate the motor rotations into speed. One is the magnet poles. That's always 30. So we set that to 30, we're done. All the motors that we have 30 poles. The next one is the gear ratio. And because we have hub motors, that's also super simple. It's always 1. Just make sure it is set to that, because the default is not 1. I think VESC defaults to some gear ratio for e-skate motors. So once that is done, the last variable is your tire diameter. And that is the tricky one, because it's not enough to just look at your tire markings and see it says, let's say 11.5 inches, and you convert that to millimeters and put that in. That's a good starting point, but it usually is not accurate. And it means you end up with numbers that are typically too high in most cases. So how do we fix that? And I know that some people go through great lengths to accurately measure the tire, but that doesn't always produce the best results. Actually, I would say in most cases it doesn't produce good results. So here is what you want to do instead. You want to look at what the VESC reported, you compare that to the real number, and you calculate the percentage difference, and that same percentage difference you apply to the wheel diameter. Now, where do you get your accurate reference from? So where do you get your accurate numbers from? You can get accurate numbers from, for example, mile markers. You can look at Google Earth and check the distance. But in my opinion, the easiest is to just use GPS, which we have built in. And Float Control and Floaty, they both report VESC numbers and the GPS numbers. And I wouldn't look at speed as the gauging factor, but I would look at distance, because distance is much easier to measure precisely than speed, because riding at a constant speed is very difficult. And when you look at averages, it also gets complicated. So we're using distance. And I have been explaining that to people. I wrote a PEV.dev article on it. And there still seems to be discussions and people are struggling with it. So I made it even easier. I now have a new feature in the Float Control tool. Here, calibrate speed in the ... menu, and then more. So you press calibrate speed, and now here you have that screen. So now all you got to do is follow these instructions. But basically, you got to pick a straight road. I know I'm not on the straightest of roads right now, but just to make the point, I'll do it here anyway. And you got to pick a straight road, and then you hit start. And you just ride. Well, actually, let's stop again here. It's probably better to be stopped. And now hit start. Now everything is at 0, and now it'll tell you your distances, both reported by the VESC and reported by GPS. And this board, I intentionally set the wheel diameter back to something higher. I set it back to 290 millimeters. for the float wheel stock tire, which I know is a little bit too much. So now what you're seeing is you see the VESC distance, you see the GPS distance, and you see the discrepancy below. And because GPS is being reported in 3-meter increments, there will be some fluctuations in that. So that's why it's better to have a longer distance. And a straight road makes it much, much easier to get accurate results. But for and this kind of thing, like wiggling back and forth, you obviously should avoid. You cannot carve while you're doing this. You just go straight for as long as you can. So you just find a good road to do that. And at that point, you'll see what your recommended wheel diameter will be. And for me, it's somewhere around 280 millimeters, based on the data that I have now. But because my trail here isn't straight at all, that number isn't going to be accurate. But you get the idea, right? So you just use this, and if you want to know how to enter that too, there is the how-to text down below. You tap that and you just follow those instructions. This is where you find it in VESC Tool. So yeah, so once you've done that, then you should see much closer numbers. So here, for example, if I compare the speed numbers, I can see here that my average and my top speeds reported by the VESC are a good bit higher than the numbers that are reported by GPS. Now you might wonder, why not just use GPS all the time? Well, there are many situations where GPS will not be accurate. If you're riding a very windy trail, if you're in places where you don't have good GPS signal, in cities with big buildings or in the woods, it's very easy for GPS to miss some sections that you rode, and especially if you're carving, that extra distance that you're getting from carving will not be picked up by GPS usually. So that is why you really want your VESC to determine your speed and your distance and not GPS. But if you go in a straight line on a straight road, GPS is excellent at giving you accurate distance data. So that's what we use to determine our reference value, and then we can correct that in VESC Tool. So yeah, that feature is now included in the latest version in the App Store, so make sure you update, and then you will find it here in the context menu, more, and calibrate speed. So yeah, enjoy.